What's up, guys? This is Heiss, and today we have another reaction video for you. This is one that I've been wanting to do for a long time because it is about a movie that has been around for a very long time, almost 100 years. The movie's called The General. It's a Buster Keaton film, kind of parodying a real story from railroad history, commonly referred to as the Great Locomotive Chase, where there was pretty much an epic tale of locomotives in the American Civil War and getting into a big chase. But the movie doesn't quite follow the plot exactly of the original story, but does a very good, thoughtful representation and fun version of it, with a lot of Buster Keaton ridiculous stunts, which is what we want to get into. And I figured, me as a railroad expert and a steam locomotive expert, we could get into the details and the fun little nuances that you may not have seen. And extra fun, this is a silent film. So hopefully we can avoid the comments of people arriving at a reaction video and then complaining that I'm reacting. As always, for those of you that ended up here in the wrong way, the original content's always in the description. So the whole movie is definitely worth watching, but we're going to focus on the railroady train bits. Let's get into it. This period of railroading and the rolling stock that they show is just so neat. You love to see a 440 like this. This is one fun thing in the film, seeing the kids come up and want to talk to the train crew. It's like, in this era, train crews were the rock stars. They were the cool people. I want to meet that guy. That was the newest novel thing in that period. So very cool to see. So in this shot here, he's taking down his pictures and everything. There's a couple neat things to unpack about the locomotive itself. For one, it's equipped with air brakes, and we're going to see that later. And that's despite the fact that this film takes place before air brakes were even a thing, before Westinghouse had come up with it at all. You can see that we've got an air gauge right there and another air gauge up there, and there's an automatic brake valve handle, and then you could just see the shine of the independent brake valve handle, which we'll watch Buster actually operate later in the film. But it's interesting to note that, okay, it's a train. People probably don't know train details. They didn't bother backdating any of that sort of stuff, just kept it in for op's sake, and it wasn't going to throw off the mood because just train. Yeah, so it's kind of neat to see. This is one of the most famous shots of the film, and it's kind of one of those things that you look at and you go, oh my god, why did you do this? How'd you film this? What? Him riding the actual connecting rod between the number 1 and the number 2. I've always assumed that they had cut out the running board so that it wouldn't actually affect this and allow them to actually do the shot. But when you see the locomotive later, it's actually got the running board still on properly. It's not trimmed back. It was just that narrow, which harkens back to that era of locomotive. So very fun to see, and one of the sillier stunts that made for a great shot in a film from 1926. In this shot here, we can see that, yeah, that running board is actually just that narrow and little, because it's such a small little boiler on a relatively small 440 American. So he actually was able to just sit right in that spot, and it just worked, which is hilarious. You can see that we got Lincoln pin couplers going on, but you can notice, despite the locomotive having air brakes, there's no hoses. So I don't know what they did. I don't know if the railroads still would have had anything lying around in deadlines that needed this, or if they had to backdate the equipment or not to have the Lincoln pin couplers, but they didn't bother having air brakes tied in while filming, which is kind of a fun detail. And this film was very not kind to the locomotives in many, many ways. We're gonna see right as they take off here, just rip the throttle open and spin those drivers. It's just fine, don't worry about it. They go take off flying. They just stole his locomotive. Egad! Go get him, Buster. So this is fun, and a fun representation of something that we don't have anymore in railroading. The actual maintenance of way, speeder, or handcar shed. They actually would set these up like this, and Buster brings the handcar out himself, and then they conveniently cut to camera while he's doing most of the work to get it on the rails, because it usually takes teams of 4 dudes to really maneuver one of those. The hand cars like that are not necessarily heavy, but they're not necessarily light either. We have a very, very similar handcar in service at the museum that we just finished getting restored. It might actually be the same model. Brett will know, I suppose, in the comments. But yeah, you really want at least 2 guys on the one side to make the maneuvers happen. So it's neat. But those sheds with the perpendicular rails to line up and bring it out, very common back in the day. Anywhere there was a maintenance of way team or MOW team. You can also see that the rail is just itty bitty in this period. I mean, it's so small compared to what we have these days. It makes standard gauge look extra wide because of how small the rail is. And anyone who's run a handcar will tell you that they've had that experience of you push on the thing and it went the wrong way. So this is fun. They're trying to get anyone chasing them to be sabotaged. So they pull the rail out of the curve. And this harkens back to a fantastic and interesting video that I should honestly do a react to that one as well at some point. In the 50s, the U.S. Army, maybe it was even before that, but the U.S. Army did tests to see how much rail you would need to remove to truly derail a train and truly sabotage it. And the amount was shocking. Which is why, of course, they're pulling out a rail on a curve. But if it's straight track, they removed like both rails for a good distance. And the locomotive and cars just jumped right back on and kept going. And it's like, wow, momentum really is a thing. So you can see here, they remove the outside rail in the curve. And then there's a conveniently weird pile of rocks, something hiding a derailing device in between the rail and the guardrail. And so he ends up going flying off when he gets there on his handcar, which is neat to see. Not a fun stunt to do either, nor would you want to land on a tie like that in a $400 handcar. How could they? But you can quite clearly see that they knew that they wanted to make it have quite the impact here, so they had definitely disguised something to derail the handcar properly and not just have it come off. They wanted it to really go do the thing, so neat to see. All right, I love this. This is just a good bit of Buster Keaton comedy of, hey, we need to go catch up with the guys. Okay, let's go. And he just rips the throttle out, and nobody ends up going with him. And so it's a one man versus everyone else on the other train, which is a little slapsticky, but you love to see it. There you can see right in front of him, G6 automatic valve right there. So A1 brake schedule here on this thing, despite it being Civil War era. So he stops and he picks up this cannon and adds it to his consist, which is fun. Rail cannons and rail-mounted artillery were absolutely a thing, particularly in Civil War time. So yeah, he's gonna go and assault these folks with his giant cannon, which you love to see. It's not very nice to do to your water tower. And they were already moving, and then they have the shot of them throwing the bar. It's fine. And this is how you take a shower. It's when you don't shut off the water tank. It's fine. And it's so interesting to see the Texas. This is the second engine, right? Buster's locomotive that he's chasing that was stolen was the General, namesake of the film, that these dastardly-looking fellows are riding. With the excellent mutton chops and everything. But it's neat to see the Texas is obviously quite modernized. It's got a steel cab on it. It's got the different dome profiles as to the General. This was actually a much later locomotive, or it survived later and was updated more so than the General was. So it's kind of nice to see a neat modernized locomotive. Also, for anyone who watches my Derail Valley or video game content, this saying is very apt here. Get back in the cab before you die! This section in here, I really want to know how they did this, because it's quite the impressive stunt that they do. And it's kind of horrifying to think if they actually did it the way it looks. You know, he's getting ready to fire his cannon, and it's all very exciting. Okay, and he's gonna go run there, and he gets his foot caught in the Lincoln pin link. How did they do that? They must have had a second locomotive or something right behind it that was pushing it for that, because there's no way his leg was holding that whole car in tow. Like, there's just no way. There's just no way that they did that. They really must have had something else pushing that's just out of shot, which is why they have a pretty tight shot here. The other thing is that this link is very strange. I've never seen one like it. Don't know why, don't know the reasoning behind that. But as it drops, you can see that they almost act as if the car runs over it and it starts jumping. And you can see actually that they've clamped something to the wheel to actually make it do the bounce as it's going, not just, it's not actually running over the link, so it's just a fun practical effect that then aims the cannon squarely at him, which, you know, that's probably the worst feeling in the entire universe. So, and they've removed the clamp again, and it's now just rolling just fine, and it's, once again, must be getting pushed by something else, I guess. Never considered that. Stop getting your foot caught in stuff, Buster. And right as all the baddies are about to shoot at him, and he's hiding from his own cannon as far away as he can, you know, in front of a bomb that's going to be shot by a cannon. Oh, thankfully there was a curve. Slapstick timing once again. Make those bad guys think a second thought about it. Love that. So they drop their boxcar, and he's gonna run into it. Oh goodness, dearie me. Someone help him. And he goes, and he just bumps into the pilot, and you can see how much the pilot deflects, and it's like, ah! And then there's, this is interesting. So they're taking axes to the boxcar, and they definitely removed some superstructure of the boxcar for the sake of plot. You'll see other shots later where there's obvious frame that should be there that isn't, so that they could do these things. And then he's gonna kick the boxcar, get it out of his way. And one of the fun little details is we got a rotary switch stand here, like a more modern switch stand on that piece. And then he's gonna take off and run. And unfortunately for him, the boxcar beats him through the other switch. And the other switch was already lined for the boxcar, and he must just blow through the points, I guess, and just whatever. But that's a harp switch stand. That switch stand should only be on a stub switch. It shouldn't be on a point switch like this, which is interesting. It's a neat little detail. A harp stand is more about aligning things than compressing the points. And you need to compress the points against the stock rail for them to actually work and make sure that you don't derail. So it's wacky to see a harp stand on a pointed switch. The bad guys are conveniently dropping things out to match the presumably screen there. And then we get a hard cut because the tricock's broken, right? That's what's going on. TRY cock. So it's where you test and try and do the thing. Where's the gloves? Where's the gloves? Anywhere? Why are you operating a steam locomotive without PPE? I guess it was 1860 something. And that poor boxcar conveniently derails out from in front of him while he's fixing the tricock, which is now just fine, of course. Where did it go? Huh. I guess maybe back there somewhere. Shrug. Yes. Buster Keaton was so expressive with just his face. So much fun to watch. And they're going to throw more ties at him. And this is... I've seen this clip posted all over Instagram, Facebook, all the things. This is like... I can't believe that they did this. I genuinely cannot believe that they actually had him do this scene and throw the ties. And reportedly, when they were filming, he almost decked himself. You'll see how close it comes. And it was not intentional. It was just the way physics happened. But there's an interesting thing that happens in this scene, which is actually the whole reason I wanted to do this reaction video, is you can tell that someone's still running the train out of shot for him. So pay close attention to these little valves here on the front of the steam chests. These are called the snifters, and they're basically a simple gravity operated versus steam valve. When you have no steam pressure in the chest, gravity opens them because there's nothing to hold them up. But when you get steam pressure in there, it shunk, and you'll hear snifters go shunk when you open the throttle. those close those valves, and you'll see a big puff of steam as they do it. And so that means someone's actuating the throttle in the cab the entire time the shot is going on. You just can't see them. They're hiding behind the boiler where you can't see them, which is neat, which means that somehow they were telling him how to maintain speed and whatever in this while Buster does the crazy stunt with the ties. So keep a watch on those snifters. You'll see the big, yep, shook of steam. There we go. Gets the throttle opened at that point, so they're accelerating. And then you'll see a little bit of steam as they plump back open. So he shut off. And goodness me, what a not fun thing. Again, throttle just closed or opened up. And then again right there. And don't clock yourself. That is a seriously athletic feat, too. Ties are heavy. Even if those were prop ties of some variety, I mean, that's still going to be extremely heavy. So kind of a crazy stunt and a kind of a crazy scene. And so neat to see and realize, oh yeah, no, someone's actually running the train right now. You just can't see him. So it's one of my favorite little bits of trivia in that. He's gone down the wrong line, but will he notice? No, he's busy firing because it's a wood burner, and all you do with a wood burner is fire. But he does notice. Not completed track. Yeah. Speaking of things that are horrid for locomotives that they probably didn't care about at this point because it's 1926 and these are 440s, just lock them up and then talk about getting off moving equipment, Buster. Good Lord. And then in this chunk here, you can watch the locomotive start to take off, right? You see it start to move right as it starts slipping. It pulls a little bit, and you can tell that they've got something coupled into the back of it behind the tender to hold it in place. So it kind of moves, but then it loses it as it loses traction. And this is horrid for a locomotive as well, to suddenly gain traction thanks to sand. Yeah, not great. But the funny thing is you can actually see on the rail in there where they obviously greased it and oiled it up right where the wheels were so that it would actually do that spin, because that would be kind of a horrendous thing to happen otherwise. So neat little thing. All right, so the bad guys have dropped a boxcar and hidden it in this bridge, and he bangs into it at speed, right? Shoves it out. It's a flaming boxcar that they're burning down. But you can see that the Lincoln pin drawbar is actually inserted into the pocket on the boxcar, and it's got a brace on the pilot to brace it up and hold it at the right height. So for the sake of making the movie work, they obviously didn't just push it with the pilot, and these wood pilots, as we'll see a little bit later, not so good at those sorts of things. So a lot of the movie is him like dealing with wood and chopping up firewood on the backs of the tenders, which is not great. But the thing that gets me the most is he's doing this all with no gloves on. Handling raw wood that looks that splintery with no gloves, like not a fun vibe. All right, so they're doing some shenanigans here, and you can actually watch as he takes off. He's actually operating the locomotive, which is pretty neat. What he just grabbed in the window right there, though, that is the independent brake valve on the locomotive. So he's actually applying the air brakes when he does that. It's an S3 independent. So right now it's kind of in the middle spot where it's lapped, basically. And he goes and nope, stop, grab it. And then he also grabs the Johnson bar. But it's the actual air brakes that are stopping it. And I guess that's what those plates are right there, is they're kind of hiding the actual brake shoes and brake linkages on the locomotive, because you can see the shoe right there, but behind that plate on the engine is actually where the brake cylinder and everything would be on this configuration of 440. And then you can see the cylinder on the tender too, but that's tucked up in there. So again, kind of neat to be like, oh yeah, it's Civil War, but we've got air brakes still. So so they set up this trap with these ropes and trees, right? Try and get the guys, because now he's being chased. He's stolen his locomotive back. He's being chased by the bad guys here. And this is horrifying. These guys riding on front ready to shoot him, they get pinned to the smoke box by the wire. And they actually did that stunt. And the smoke box is not cold. Like, it's not as hot as the boiler, but it's not hot. I've temp gunned ours, and they're like 250 to 300 degrees. So, props to the actors for having the huevos to do that stuff. It's kind of crazy. Just skid him flat once again. Thanks, Buster. Taking good care of your engine. And they bring down the water tank spout to go, and it doesn't quite mate up, so they just pull it off. And this is actually how water tank spouts are actually usually set up. And of course, it's for slapstick comedy here in this case, but yeah, I mean, it really is just a floating thing. It's not a hard connection at all. It's small pipe going into big pipe, just like that on most water tanks. And this is just like, you're actually gonna do this? You're really going to do Lincoln Pin on the fly from the pilot? These guys had some big balls. Some of the stuff is like, you make one wrong move and you're gonna get run over. Goodness. Definitely some excellent stuntmen in this film. Uh-oh. Remember what I said about the pilots? Yep. Oopsie. Yeah. Wood pilot. Good for some stuff, not good for a lot of other things, as we've talked about in the pilot cowcatcher video. All right, lady. You see this thing? That's the go stick. Pull that out, and then I'll just put this there for you. Do it when I say. Yeah. He's going to use that chain that was caught on his foot earlier, and they're going to destroy the switch stand so that the guys chasing them won't be able to get him. So he's going to lock the switch over and break the yoke and break all the pieces so that they can't go. And now she's just like, wait, how do I stop? He only showed me how to make it go! And then, of course, he's going to chase after her in the most comedic, slapsticky, silent movie way. And then the other guys get up to the switch and, you know, don't realize what's going on. And good heavens, the speed that they hit that coal trestle like that. Some of the stunts they did, even if they sped some of the stuff up, just like, okay. Good God, guys. A little bit of that was camera trickery, but that's fine. Not a whole lot holding that pilot on there. It's fine. And the whole time, they take a look at the switch, and the whole time I'd been looking at this going, just like, break the thing apart and just clamp the point over. Like, take the point off the bridle and clamp it over somehow. Like, it would be so easy, like... MOW doesn't even need to do that. You can't use the switch, but you could at least get on the main. And then it's like another 7 or 8 minutes later in the movie when they finally figure out, hey, we could do exactly that. And so they knock out the hardware with an axe, which is funny. And then they actually just block the point over with the axe to hold it in place, lower than the flange so they can continue going and chasing. It's like, come on, guys. So it's funny. Whole time I was telling myself, come on, like, this is just an easy fix. Like, what are you doing? Use your ingenuity. And then it took him 7 minutes to get to it. And then this is more sabotage by Buster. He's built a fire on this bridge to slow him down, and they don't think it's compromised. And they actually did this. I can't believe they actually did this. They actually dropped a locomotive through the bridge. And you could tell it's under steam, like, goodness gracious. And I've always wondered, presumably that's just a dummy or something in the cab with the white shirt on, and it's not a real person, because they wouldn't make somebody ride down the locomotive like that. There's no way. So that's gotta be, you know, a separate thing. But I want to say, if I remember correctly, that this was actually the most expensive silent film ever made. And that's part of the reason why, is the carnage that they did to these locomotives is hilarious. But again, the whole movie's worth a watch. It's super fun. It's very slapsticky, good time. And they teach it still to this day in a lot of film classes, talking about the history of film. And Buster Keaton's just great in general. So make sure you go check it out. But hope you guys liked hearing a little bit of the railroad input and kind of seeing some of the fun little train nuances that are included within this film. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll catch y'all next time.